All right, welcome back, folks. Today we have Donnie Boivin to the show here. Donnie, welcome to Dirty Boots Capital.
Tony, dude, looking forward to hanging out, man. Already the short conversation we've had has been a lot of fun. So I think we're gonna razzle dazzle a little bit and see if we can't teach some guys some things.
Yeah, so for the viewers, those that might not know you, you are a rock star. You are out there. You are doing great things. So many of them probably already know you, Donnie. But for those that don't, you are a Marine Corps vet. So thank you first and foremost.
My
Thank
honor.
you for your service, brother. We appreciate you, all that you've done, and continue to do. You're an entrepreneur out there doing great things. You have your own mastermind, so you're educating in that way. You have your own podcast, so you're also educating folks there. You have your 2023 Badass Business Summit coming up here in September, which is awesome. I was looking at that. You got some rock star names there. So for folks who want to learn more about that Badass Business Summit, go to badassbusinesssummit.com and take a look at the roster of speakers that are going to be there in September. That is freaking awesome. You're doing great stuff there, Donnie.
Thanks,
to
brother.
educate folks. You're a best-selling author. You have multiple books out there. Man, you are a Renaissance man. You are doing great stuff. So I'm super excited. Did I miss anything, Donnie?
Well, I mean, I have a full working farm. I always love throwing that on top of it because in the midst of all the other chaos of running 3 businesses, all the books and everything else, I like people to understand that I do this while running a full working farm on top of it. So, some people say I'm crazy, and I'm like, I'm just living the life that I want to live. So, and created that life. So,
And you're taking action, right? And this is one of the things I chat a lot with folks about is the need to take action. Ain't nobody going to do it for you, right?
sure.
Jesus ain't walking through that door to put something on your table. It's not going to be in your backyard. You got to go find it, right? You are somebody out there taking action, doing great things for yourself and helping others. And I know you speak a lot to entrepreneurs and businesses and things like that. But I want to share with the audience here, the viewers and the listeners, that a lot of this stuff that we may be speaking to that applies to entrepreneurs also applies to individuals. It applies to ourselves, our mindset, how we think, how we take action, how we procrastinate or don't procrastinate, right? So a lot of the things we're going to be talking about, we have to think about not just for entrepreneurs and businesses, but also for ourselves as individuals and what we can do to be better people and take action. Hopefully that all sounds okay to you, Donnie.
Yeah, no, that works for me. Here's the interesting thing is, I spent 40 years of my career working for other people and making everybody else really, really, really wealthy. I've sold hundreds of millions of dollars in various industries. And I didn't know that you could do this thing called be an entrepreneur, be a business owner until I turned 40. I grew up as a blue collar kid, and as a blue collar guy, you work, you get a job, and that's what you do for your entire life. But I think most people like me, you're always thinking, man, there's got to be something more, right? There's got to be something better. And so, I mean, that was a lot of the reasons I made the big leap. And, you said take action. And I think a lot of people understand the idea of taking action. I think they just don't know what actions to take because they've just gone through life with their head down, probably being extremely successful in whatever field they're in, but they haven't taken time to step back and go, okay, what am I really going to get out of this life? What am I really going to contribute and give back? What is that legacy I'm going to leave behind? And if it's not a legacy, then, what's the stories people are going to tell about you later? And I think that life is simply an experience. And the more you experiment in that experience, it just gets a lot more fun to try and do different things. So you can figure out what the hell you want to be when you grow up.
Yeah, there's so much negativity out there and the media with the politicians. It becomes it creates a sense of paralysis. What do I do? Which way do I turn? And it's not a good thing for folks. So what I do is I lean on folks who are doing great things that I want to do one day. So I look towards folks like you, Donnie, right? You have your own summit, you're an entrepreneur, you're doing great things, right? I turn to folks like you and I say, Donnie, what are you doing today? Right? How did you get there? Right? So that's where I, so to speak, help encourage people to take a start. Also books and podcasts, right? Those are either free or cheap.
Yep.
So, you're riding home from work, you're, mowing the lawn or something like that. Put in some earbuds, listen to a podcast, right? Instead of listening to a mindless show, when you come home from work, pick up a book, read a good book, right? I have tons of books lying around the table. People ask me what book I'm reading today, and it's like, well, I'm actually reading 4 books, because
Well,
because when I
and for me, I don't even read books anymore.
yeah,
The reason I don't read books is there's so much other mediums you can consume. Like I love podcasts. Every morning I go walk the farm about 45 minutes on the farm, and I'll have a podcast playing, and while my German shepherds are running the pastures, and you can just learn so damn much. And if it's not
yeah,
podcast, I will do an audiobook every once in a while, but podcast is primarily my medium, because you can go to any podcast app there is
yeah,
and type in the search bar whatever you want to learn. I mean, because people all the time are like, what podcast I listen to? The podcast itself doesn't matter, right? I have my own show. I love it, Growth Mode, and you can go find it anywhere. But you go to a podcast app, you type in whatever you want to learn: mindset, success, business, entrepreneurship, finance, wealth, whatever you want to learn, and just find an episode that pops up. And the great thing is you can start a podcast. If you're into it, listen to the whole thing. If it sucks, just go to the next podcast,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And you can just literally get an entire MBA in podcast on whatever subject or topic you want to know. I mean, I've seriously learned so much about growing a business just from listening to different and various podcasts. So,
yeah, yeah. My problem is, and I don't know if this is a guy thing. So all you guys out there, respond below in the comments. Let me know what you think about this. I don't know if it's a guy thing, but for me, I like to, as I'm reading an actual book, I like to highlight certain ideas that I can go back and take action on. I'm reading a great book now called Primal Branding, which talks about like 6, 7 ways to brand your business. It's a great book. And so I'm highlighting, certain sections that I can now go back to and actually take action on.
oh, let me
Whereas,
teach you then a fun process. So I
yeah,
have
please.
Asana on my phone, which is just an app that we run our entire company on it, right? So it's all your processes, all your operational. So any projects, it's a project management system is what it really is. But in Asana, I have a section called Walking Thoughts. And what Walking Thoughts is when you listen to a podcast, you get that aha, you're like, ooh, this is the thing I need to do. I just open up that app and I'll type in what's the action I need to take, or what's the learning I got from that moment. So
Yeah,
I don't have to go back and flip through an entire book or flip through an entire podcast. I'm literally capturing it right then and there, and that's my call to action. So
yeah,
I'll go through, even oftentimes if I need to put out some social content, I'll go to my Walking Thoughts and go, okay, what was a good aha? That was
yeah,
a good one. I'll take that good aha, and that'll
yeah,
become part of my social content that I put out there. And I just keep stacking these up. So I've got a couple of thousands of these Walking Thoughts. And if I take the action, I just strike through it, use that strike through text, and then it's done. So it's
yeah,
taken off the list. Because I've found over the years that if I took notes in books, that I wouldn't go back and freaking do the books, because I'd have to remember, okay, crap, I gotta go get the book, pick it up, flip through the damn pages. I always have my phone on me. It's readily
yeah,
available right then and there, and I can take the actions off there. So,
yeah,
um, and every Monday, we do a live as part of our podcast. And one of the things we do in there is I bring in the whole team together, and me and Kevin, who's my COO, we do a forced podcast review. So we have to give each other a podcast to listen to,
yeah,
and then talk about what were the takeaways with a good podcast episode or whatnot. And so during that one, I just take the notes from that podcast right there in Asana based on the episode given to me. So I can remember right then and there either what actions I need to take or where I need to make fun of Kevin because he gave me a crappy episode.
No, and so basically what we're talking about here, and again, this applies whether you're an individual or whether you're an entrepreneur with a business or you're looking to do, greater things than what the greatness you're doing today. What we're basically talking about here is discipline. I have a certain discipline that I follow each and every day, week, month, year. Donnie has the same thing. What works for him, he has a discipline around that. And again, this is one thing we talk about when we're trying to help people achieve more in their lives: discipline. I mean, what do you think about that, Donnie, in terms of being an important characteristic, a value to carry discipline with you?
Well, so I get hung up sometimes on just the idea, the phrase or the word discipline, because I'm a very routine guy. So I like the idea of creating a lot more routines, which does require you to have discipline to do it. But I'm not the miracle morning guy, like saying you have to start your day off a particular way, blah, 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 but I do believe that you need to have your routines down. So what I say for me, I have a full working farm. It's about 45 to 90 minutes to wake up the farm each morning. And I can't skip a step or it really derails my day. And you hope nothing's wrong with an animal or something, because now you're really derailing your day. So part of the reason that I get up so early is so I can take care of a lot of things before the business day starts. But I think a lot of people aren't looking at their overall routines. They're just trying to do all the things versus getting disciplined in doing the things you need to do. So it's like simple things. I know that if I don't do my business development activities early in the morning, that they're not going to get done, because we all know once the day starts,
Yep.
everything else goes, sales, business development goes out the window, because life and business is going to happen. So I just know that as soon as I'm done waking up the farm, as soon as I'm done putting out the social content, it's sitting right here at the desk and getting my business development done, which is for me, going to be 15 to 20 reach outs on LinkedIn every day, no miss. And I'm talking 7 days a week, because, running your own business, there are no days off. I'm not the hustle and grind guy. People come at me all the time for that. So my philosophy is simple. I have a farm, right? On my farm, my goats can't let themselves out of the barn out into the pastures, right? I have to feed them every morning. So I don't get the, hey, let's sleep in today, or, let's, take a 10-day vacation and not think about it. So I have to take care of them. I have to put them up every night because of predators. Even though I have 400 pounds of Great Pyrenees dogs with 2 dogs out there running with them, I still have to put them up every night. So it's not about being the hustle and grind. It's disciplined enough to do the work until the work's done. I have to wake the goats up every morning. I have to put the goats to bed every night. When you're doing anything in life, there are things that you have to do every day. And in my business, it's my business development. I have to do it every morning. I can't miss. If I have a to-do list to get done, it has to get done every day. The day's not done until the work is done. And I just tell everybody, it's like working a farm. Those goats aren't going to wake themselves up, and those goats aren't going to put themselves to bed. There are things you have to do every day.
Yeah, the thing that I think most folks struggle with is when they're working to achieve something new, either start a business, be an entrepreneur, create a podcast, do whatever it is they want to do that's new. They struggle with where to start. That's why I go back to take a look at folks that are doing it, similar line of business that they're successful at, that you want to start something along those lines, lean on them for help, and then come up with that routine to achieve those goals that you want to achieve. You need that routine, like Donnie's talking about. You need that routine. You need to ingrain that in your mind, right? That discipline each and every day. And what I find that creates for me, right? All I can talk about is me. I have my routine. I have my discipline that I follow each and every day. As I go through it and I, cross things off the list, so to speak, that's like it sets off endorphins in my mind in terms of, wow, I did something. I got that done. Cross it off the list. It feels good. The endorphins are going off, and it just encouraged me to do more that day. And then the other thing that it helps me with, there's no second guessing in terms of what do I need to do tomorrow. I know my list is already created. There's no, paralysis in terms of what do I need to do tomorrow. You already know you need to make, 17, connections on LinkedIn. You need to make those. That's each and every day. That's part of your list. So creating that mindset around this is huge as well. I believe.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And I would say, most people get caught in what action do I take, because they're trying to look at the entire thing. So let's say you wanted to start a podcast. What people are going is, oh my God, I got to create all this content. Maybe I got to find guests, and I got to create graphics and all this stuff. Well, all you have to do to figure out what action to take is break it down to the smallest possible action you can possibly do. So think about, okay, I want to launch a podcast. Cool. What's the smallest step I can take to move in that direction? Maybe it is making a list of people who have podcasts and reaching out to them, right? Maybe that's the smallest step you can do. And each one of them is going to give you a nugget. What happens is we get into this idea of overwhelm because we're trying to think about the end game. It's like if somebody's saying, I want to be a millionaire. And my question every time somebody says that is like, what does being a millionaire actually mean to you? Right? Is that a net worth of $1 million? Is that $1 million in the bank? Is that $1 million business? What does it actually mean? And so you have to break it down to what is it you're actually trying to accomplish, and then work backwards down to that smallest, tiniest step. And I think a lot of people, because they're live their life always being told what to do, when you think about creating a life of freedom and a life you want to live, nobody's going to tell you how to do it. You're going to have to figure a lot of this out on your own through listening to podcasts, talking to people who have done it. But even if somebody walks up to you and says, hey, do step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you still have to do step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can't just go to step 5.
And no, along the way, you're gonna suck. You're gonna fail.
Yes.
You're right. All too often people are like, and society is cultivated this way. Everybody gets a trophy. There's so much entitlements out there. Which is bullshit. I'm not a fan of it. I believe I'm first generation American. Like you, I grew up in a very blue collar environment. My dad was a construction worker. My mom worked in a factory. We grew up in an apartment. We didn't have a lot, right? The kids I went to school with, they had better name brand sneakers than I did, right? So I didn't grow up with a silver spoon. So yeah, on my journey towards creating, uh, wealth and freedom and, just a better life for myself, there was a lot of failure along the way. I need to warm up to the fact that that was part of the process. And you mentioned starting podcasts. You and I both have them. I know. I won't speak to yours because you probably came out of the gate like a rock star, like most things you're
No,
doing. But when I
no.
started, I sucked, and I probably still suck. The viewers can let me know down below in the comments. But it's about starting. No, you are gonna fail. No, you are gonna suck. And maybe that's the title of this video. You will suck. I don't know. I gotta come up with a title. But when I started, or when I was thinking about started, I went to George Gammon, Rebel Capitalist, right? He has a huge following out there. He has 2 great podcasts. He has over 500,000 subscribers to his podcast. And so I went to George and I said, "Hey, George, I'm like thinking about doing this. These are the topics." Da, 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 da. His first thing out of his mouth was, "Tony, just start. You're gonna suck effort. Your first video is gonna suck. That's okay. Just put it out there. Your second video is gonna suck. Your third video is gonna suck. Your fourth video will suck a little less." You're right. So it's just get started, right? Know your goals, know your audience, know who you're selling to, know who you are, who you want to reach out to, what value you want to add. And maybe on that particular day, you're not adding as much value to your customer, to your client, to your audience as you want to, but maybe the next day, you got to try to be better, right?
Well,
So
tell everybody. I mean, because everybody's like, I want to be the next Joe Rogan. Well, first of all, how about you become the first you, right? You don't need to be anybody else. But everybody's like, look how successful Joe's podcast is and how much it's taken off. Still the number 1 podcast in the world. Blah blah blah.
yeah,
Joe's been doing this shit for 14 years.
yeah,
Right. He started podcasting way before, there was any level of podcasting we have now. And, if you go back and you find Joe's original stuff, dude sucked ass. I mean, his stuff was horrible, and it sounded like, an old school WWF announcer in some of his early episodes, Um, and people were like, well, he found success because he had Fear Factor. No, he started his podcast even before Fear Factor, right? So he was absolutely nobody when he launched his stuff. The dude just got after it and put out a ridiculous amount of content,
yeah.
and he was way ahead of the curve before the podcast boom, and it worked. But I think if you looked at Joe's overall work ethic, dude, that guy puts in the fucking time. I mean, he is constantly, getting after it, doing different things. It's like looking at somebody like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. That dude. If you haven't watching the series, his series about his life, which I forget what it's called right now, but it's a great series. But talks about his upbringing in the wrestling family and the likes. But the dude put in the work. Same thing about Kevin Hart. The dude put in the work. And it's not about freaking hustling or anything else. It's about doing that shit that's going to move you forward and consistently evolving. And the greatest quote of all time comes from Sylvester Stallone in the Rocky movies. It's not about how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can take a hit and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. And, building a business for myself has been the absolute toughest thing I've ever done in my life. And I almost lost my farm along the way. My wife's car got repossessed at one point. We had to cash in both our 401ks to make this work. And in the midst of all that, I had a company come to me and offer me almost a 7-figure base to be a vice president of sales for an extremely large company. And I had the choice. Do I take the job or do I keep chasing the dream? And I chose to chase the dream so we can get to where we are now and a lot further. We got a long way to go. But, 5.5 years of building a business at this point, and I finally met the dude in the mirror, and I'm finally building the empire that I wanted to build. And I'm impacting thousands of lives around the world, all because I continue to show up. I build a business around the life that I want to live, and I have the routines down, and I'm disciplined enough to stay in the game and constantly be moving forward. But every day we're crazy
Yeah.
because I'm going to get up and know that today is the day I'm going to get punched in the face, and I got to smile and go, cool, we get to do this shit again tomorrow.
Yeah, no, and thank you, Donnie, for being vulnerable in that way and sharing those stories, because sometimes folks think this just happens, right?
Yep, for sure.
I so to speak say I was fortunate. I retired from the corporate gig at the age of 44 years old. I didn't have to do anything after that. I still don't have to do anything today, but I have a passion. I have a passion like you to educate, to help people, to kind of spread the word of how I did it and how they might be able to do it, right? They don't have to follow my path, but I think there's certain traits that we as successful entrepreneurs have, ingrained in us that I think served us well. And to be able to share those traits with others is a powerful message. So that's what I like to get across. But, along the way, like you, like me, there's failures where we're going to get punched in the face, in the gut, and we're just going to have to absorb that and move on. Not every day is a beautiful day when I go out there to drum up business either for myself or for my clients. Not every day is successful, so I got to pick myself, dust myself off, and go back to that routine that we spoke about the next day. Make
Yep.
17 calls, right?
Mm.
Post 17 messages, whatever it is. That's the routine. You just got to keep doing that. um Paralysis. I find paralysis is sometimes a big issue with folks. And so I want to touch on that a little bit because, for the viewers and listeners out there, I want you to think about this concept. If you're paralyzed, that might mean you're not the right person to tackle that issue. Maybe you don't have the right education. Maybe you don't have the amount of time to go tackle that, whatever it is. If you're paralyzed in some way of doing something, either for your business or individually, chances are you're not the right person and you need to go find the right person to do that task for you. What do you think about that, Donnie, that concept?
So there's a lot to unpack in that, but the two concepts run through my head. One, if you're paralyzed, you may not be the right person, but I would say, what are you fucking up? What are you breaking? Because what most people aren't doing is they're sitting back and thinking. And if you're thinking too long, you're going to be thinking wrong. Okay.
Yep.
So 80% is good enough to move forward with anything. So, um, I truly believe the only way to learn something is to break it. And the only way you can break something is you actually have to be doing it and in it, and things have got to be falling apart. And you have to go, okay, it's falling apart. What am I learning? And then apply that learning.
Yeah.
The second idea in there that you broke into is maybe you need to give it to somebody else. I think that's often the case, but even giving it to somebody else, you have to have enough working knowledge to know
Yeah.
what you're giving them.
Yeah.
When I first started hiring people, just as a prime example, I made bad assumptions that they were just the expert in whatever. And you know what happens when you make an assumption? You make an ass of you and me, right? I had to learn the hard way that if I didn't have working knowledge of whatever it is I needed them to do, then oftentimes they would not accomplish what I needed done because I
Yeah.
couldn't articulate it in a right way. So if you're building a business or doing anything in business, the number one thing you got to do is get the things off your plate that are keeping you from doing what you're supposed to be doing. Like my number one job for my company is to be the face of the company. It's to get on podcasts, get on stages, get my personal brand out there as big and loud as I possibly can. So people come find me, then they come find our company, Success Champions, Badass Business Summit, Growth Mode Podcast, Champion Stable Mastermind, right? And so they come find all that stuff, but they're going to find Donnie Boivin most times first.
Mhm.
And so I have to put myself out there. So the way I look at my businesses all the time is, okay, anything that keeps me from being out front, somebody else inside the company has to do. So we constantly are looking at, all right, Donnie, what are you working on? And the team comes to me all the time. They're like, hey, what's in your way right now that I can take off your plate? And that allows me to do this and do more. And I think for most people, if you're sitting in some sort of paralysis, or you're overthinking or the likes, start breaking things. Like, we have a champions code in our business. We don't do core values. We do champions codes because I like the idea of a code better. And one of them is go break shit trying new things. Because what we found is it's not paralysis, it's complacency. And if complacency happens in a business, you're going to go backwards
Yeah.
really, really quick. So every Monday we'll get together and go, okay, what'd you break last week?
Yeah.
Right. And we create this environment of screwing up, not screwing up on purpose, but letting people know it's okay breaking things, especially if you're trying something new and you're trying to innovate and create something new to create that environment. So get it off your plate and go break shit.
Yeah, and one of the things I do with folks is I walk them through what I call my 3 by 5 networking plan on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. The three daily, weekly, monthly, and then five deep. Who are you networking with on a daily basis? Who are those five people? Weekly basis, who are those five people? And then a monthly basis, who are those five people? So 3 by 5 networking plan. And one of the things that comes out of that is doing things like going to conferences on a monthly basis or joining a mastermind where you're chatting with folks like yourself and your team and your members of the mastermind who all have the same experiences more often than not of how do I do this, and being able to work through those issues together, right? So the cost associated with joining some of those things, people struggle to get over. They're like, oh, I'm going to have to join a mastermind and it's going to cost me this.
Oh, dude,
But
we
you
can
know
nip
what?
that in the ass really quick. You got to pay to get in the rooms you need to be into, period.
Yep.
End of story. I have
Yep.
found more often than not that to be in the rooms you need to be into, to get around the people that are doing the things you want, you got to
Yep.
pay to get in those rooms. You are not going to get just invited in those rooms until you've paid to play long enough that you're either now creating the rooms
Yeah.
or you're the celebrity of the room, right? You're
Yeah.
going to pay to get in there. And it's like a buddy of mine, Doug Mitchell, him and I were talking, and he paid $40,000 to go to this mastermind. Now, this mastermind was filled with these 8, 9, and 10-figure earners, right? And he said, dude, I walked in that room and I was the smallest fish in that room. He goes, you want to talk about imposter syndrome? I was so in over my head. But for me, I'm like, that's the right room you want to be in, right? You
Yeah.
want to be the smallest
Yeah.
fish walking in. And he goes, what's the craziest thing is these guys were running these multiple $1 million companies. And he goes, about 6, 7 months of being part of that mastermind, all of a sudden, like 9 of them were my client. And I said, well, walk me through that. He goes, well, I've ran a solar company for 13 years. I've been hiring and building sales teams that entire time in one of the toughest industries in the world, straight commission, door to door style sales. And as people were getting to know me and I was talking about what I was doing, they started asking me, he said, how do I build sales teams? How do I bring all these people together? And then people started paying him for the advice, and he's like, screw it. He actually shut down the solar company and now does nothing but go and teach how to build these monstrous sales teams. And he's built a monstrous business now. And it all started because he spent $40,000 going to this freaking mastermind to get around these people
Yeah.
that he felt like an imposter being around, and realizing and them finding out he's got knowledge they need. And
Yeah.
it's half the battle sometimes.
You gotta pay to play. You
Yep.
gotta. And if you don't have a lot of cash to work with, I get it. I get it. Not everybody can, pay the, even $20,000 for a mastermind, but
Yeah,
there's
but I would
something
tell
about that.
I would challenge that there's $100 masterminds, there's $50
Yeah.
masterminds,
Yep.
right?
Exactly.
You just got to
Yep.
keep leveling up. And
Yeah.
I would also tell people, look at where your money's going. If you're spending your money on stupid shit versus investing in yourself,
Yeah.
like, I'm going to have people come at me on this one, but odds are investing in you versus going to some sort of college, university, or anything like that is way more beneficial than getting some stupid degree that's going to hang on a wall,
Yep.
right? As Alex Hormozy says, and invest in the university of you.
And Alex is awesome. He, I've just recently really started diving into a lot of his stuff. So for entrepreneurs out
Yeah,
there
he
who are
teaches well. He
he
teaches real well.
he teaches what, and he gives a lot of it free.
Yep.
He gives a lot of what are being, paid services out there. He's giving a lot of great
Well, yeah, I
information
mean,
for
he needs
free.
these companies to be successful so they can come in acquisition.com, which is, I mean,
Yeah.
he's smart. It's the same thing we do. We teach everything we break and everything we're learning as we build business, right? And we give it away because I'm just a firm believer that if you find value in it, you find success in it. If
Yeah.
you want to know more about what you do, you'll reach out and come find us. And if
Yeah.
not, cool, DIY, go impact and change your world. And
Yeah.
it's the coolest business model in the world.
It's value, man. And so value comes down to like things like the 2023 Badass Business Summit. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the Badass Business Summit will bring 150 CEOs and small business owners together in an environment to work towards scaling your business. What we've found is most people who are building a business do it like it's an episode of Survivor. They're trying to be the last person standing doing it on their own. And, it's a surefire way to lose in business. You've
Yeah.
got to get in the rooms and around the people that are doing things and absolutely going for it. So we're bringing in some ridiculous speakers. Like we're bringing in Jared Morgan. He did a $500 million exit 2 years ago and is going to talk about ultimately scaling your business. Michael Haynes is flying in from Australia to talk about your business process and systems. We have a huge CEO panel that we're going to dive into these companies and the things they've done to grow. Have a sales panel, masterminds, which are just awesome. Every day we'll have a mastermind going where you'll get a chance to sit with some of these amazing people and talk about really leveling up your business and growing. And my favorite thing about the summit as a whole is all the speakers stay all 4 days and are sitting in the crowd. So they're not just flying in, flying out. You're getting a chance to get up and close, ask questions, interact, and really get some cool feedback on whatever it is you're trying to work on. I know we've got CEOs flying in from Africa, Australia, Canada, so this is a pretty big deal, very
And
intimate room, you
how,
know.
how much is a ticket to that? Let me ask
So
that, Donnie.
yeah.
Really.
So standard tickets are $397, I believe, right now.
So
And
for,
yeah,
folks, for less than 400
yeah,
bucks, you can't afford 400 bucks to be sitting in a room full of powerful CEOs and entrepreneurs and people who have done it and who are where you want to be. You
100%.
can't afford 400 bucks, really? Yeah,
You
I think
know,
we all can.
for sure. Half the battle, I think, in life and business is your network. And, for me, it's not about who you know, it's about who knows you and who's bringing your name up in the right conversations,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I think the strongest thing we can have in this world is our personal brand. And your personal brand is the stories people are telling about you out there and into other places. And if nobody's bringing up your name, then you're not going loud enough, not doing enough things to get your personal brand out there. So yeah, get your ass to the Best Business Summit, impact and
Yeah.
change your life. And it's the room you need to be in.
This is great stuff, Donnie. I so appreciate you. I so appreciate your time coming on my channel here to share this intel, this value, right?
Yeah, for
Value
sure. Let
is
me
what
do
you're
one
bringing
thing for you,
forward.
Tony.
Yeah.
Guys, if you've listened this long to us and you've hung out with us for this amount of time, do Tony a favor and share this episode out with one person. Having my own show, the toughest thing in the world to do is to build an audience. If you got any value out of this episode or any of his other episodes, share this out to one person and tell them they need to check this out. And if you really want to kick it up a notch, because Tony sucks at this, and I told him that when we first got on, go leave this dude a freaking review out there on Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, whatever. Go leave him a review. And the best way to do that is on the sites. Go right in what you liked about his show. Go to social media. Take a selfie or take a screenshot of wherever you're listening to this. Tag Tony and I in this episode. I'll jump in and reply. Tony will jump in and reply. But think about if you got value from anything, one of the coolest things you can do is share that value and that knowledge with somebody else. So help Tony out and do those things for him. It'll mean the world to him.
Thank you. Thank you, Donnie. I appreciate you, brother. I
Yeah, for
truly
sure.
do. And tell folks where they can connect with you, where they can look up what you're doing, social media or your website. How can
Yep.
folks
Yep.
connect?
So look up Donnie Boivin wherever you are. So last name is spelled Boivin. So Donnie Boivin. Growth Mode is a podcast. You can find that wherever you listen to podcasts. Social media, it's Donnie Boivin everywhere. and come hang out. And if you do follow, connect, anything, please send me a message. Let me know you heard me on Tony's show, and that way I know where you're coming from.
Thanks, brother. You're a rock star.
Thanks,
And
dude.
hopefully I can return the favor one day and help you in any way possible.
This has been huge, man. Thanks for having me
Uh,
on.
all right. Be well.